Things were a bit different in the rematch. A lot changed. A lot of shots fell for Denver. Not a lot of shots fell for the Thunder in the second half. We're going to dive into this second game of the back-to-back between OKC and Denver on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder losing to the Denver Nuggets, snapping their winning streak in the second night of a back-to-back in which Jokic and Murray and the Nuggets role players were awesome. The Thunder went cold in the second half. There was a lot of ebbs and flows in this game. It was a game of runs, and it was a game that showed you what a playoff series would look like, which is competitive, which is volatile, which is a series that would go the distance. Now, I would still pick the Thunder to win a playoff series between these two teams, but I would pick the Thunder to win this series in 7 games. And you saw that play out over the course of this season series. OKC gets a big win in Denver in the season opener. They fall to Denver in Denver. They beat Denver yesterday and looked incredible in doing so. They look like the more composed team, the more mature team. You can go and listen to yesterday's show for the full recap of that, but they looked awesome. And then tonight, Denver had their way for an entire half. That's going to happen too in a playoff series. You know, I think that sometimes whenever we're previewing series and talking about the future, you kind of forget what it takes to get to the destination. Right? Thunder in 7 is not just words. To get to Thunder in 7, you've got to go through 3 losses for Oklahoma City. Now, the reason I'd pick the Thunder in 7 is not to discount Denver, but I believe that the Thunder have a better roster top to bottom. I believe that there's no true coaching advantage in the sense of I respect Mike Malone a lot. I think Mark's an incredible coach. I think that both coaches are awesome. I think that the chess moves that each can make game to game will be incredible to watch as a basketball fan. So, but I don't think that one's superior fully to the other, right? One's just like clearly going to coach circles around the other. So let's call that a wash. Let's give the Thunder a deeper roster, and then you give the Thunder home court advantage. And that's where you get to in a 7th game on the road. It's very tough to win. And role players shoot better at home. They don't shoot as great on the road. Denver's role players did shoot great today on the road, so feather in their cap. But ultimately, this game isn't and shouldn't change the perspective, just like yesterday shouldn't change the perspective. I thought that the yesterday's game, it showed the Thunder can compete. It showed the Thunder have a maturity about them that they didn't have a year ago, that they've obviously built because you get mature with experience. They've gotten more experience, but it's still going to be a very hard-fought series. And both sides get to play, right, their card of last night and tonight, but last night especially. When Aaron Gordon left that game, it completely changed the dynamic. And he didn't play tonight. When Jalen Williams left this game, it completely changed the dynamic. But that's not to discount what Denver did. Look, Denver was the better team tonight. Denver executed better tonight. And the Thunder's performance was not good enough tonight to win the game. That's obvious because they lost the game, right? But Denver, in the second half, this is where the game was won. And this is where I don't think you can overreact if you're from the Thunder side. If you're from the Denver side, this should make you really encouraged. In the second half, Denver shot 67% from the floor. They shot 70% from 3. The Thunder shot 40% from the floor and 36% from 3. Now, mind you, just 30 hours ago, neither team could hit the broadside of a barn from beyond the arc. And that was a mixture of Denver executing on open looks and good opportunities and just sensational shot making. And guess what? That's going to happen in a series, right? You're going to get Jamal Murray games. Like Jamal Murray was awesome tonight, and he missed open shots on Sunday. And it's a make or miss league. It completely changes the and shapes the narratives. He misses good looks on Sunday. His stat line looks worse, and he kind of takes the brunt from Denver fans. He hits all these shots today, and it kind of rejuvenates you moving forward. And Shai said it best after the game. he was asked because Shai came in and he wasn't somber, he wasn't sour. He was answering the questions. He was giving the questions, great attention. Where it's easy to like after a game like this, an emotional game, to dismiss everything, kind of be more reserved, kind of be more shut off. And he was asked why he was not down. Like that was the way that he was asked it. And Shai said, the wins are never as good as you think they are, and the losses are never as bad as you think they are. And basically, it's another opportunity to get better, even though the Thunder lost. And that's what it is, right? Because again, to get to a seventh game, you got to lose 3. You got to lose the 3. And how did the Thunder lose to Denver? This is how. And the J-Dub thing is massive, and we're going to talk about that coming up. But at the end of the day, what happened in this game was Jamal Murray was awesome, Jokic was awesome, and then you got the role player game. You got 2 threes in the second half from Russell Westbrook, 3 total. You got 3 threes, 3 for 3 from Peyton Watson in the second half. Jalen Pickett gave you a 3. Christian Brown went 2 for 2. Like, that's the formula. It's the role players stepping up and the top 2 being studs. And Denver only had 2 players log minutes tonight that didn't reach double figures. One had 0 and Zeke Naji didn't attempt a shot in 11 minutes. And then one had 8. Right? So Jalen Pickett had 8. He almost had double the figures. So it would have been everybody who played a significant portion of the game that had double figures. And hats off for execution. Peyton Watson was stellar. 4 for 4 from 3. He had a block of Chet Holmgren on a turnaround jumper. He had 2 blocks total and a rebound. Jalen Pickett was really good. 2 for 3 total from 3. 3 for 4 from the floor. He had a steal. He had an assist. He had a rebound with 8 points. And then you got the very best version of Russ, where he's flying in, getting you offensive boards. He's flying to get you boards, period. He got you 5 boards, 7 assists, and a block. He was energy giving defensively. He hit his open shots offensively. He shot 60% and 60% from the floor and the 3-point line, going 6 for 10 overall. Jokic was Jokic. I mean, he was 35 points. He was 18 rebounds. He was 8 assists, steal and a block. Murray had 34. Brown had 14. Michael Porter Jr. was 3 for 6, and he did his job. The Nuggets role players did their job. The Thunder's role players did not. Right? And like the Thunder's role players are even made to look better again by that first half where they were awesome. It was a tale of 2 halves. In the second half, OKC saw Lu Dort go 5 for 10. Now that's just a half, by the way. Lu Dort was sensational. Lu Dort was incredible. But Chet goes 0 for 4 from 3. Wiggins goes 1 for 2. Kaysen goes 1 for 1. Jay will 0 for 2. Isaiah Joe 0 for 2. Whereas last afternoon, Jay Will was incredible from beyond the arc. Isaiah Joe got you a 3. Caruso, right? Like these guys were stepping up. Didn't step up today in the first half. I mean, in the second half. In the first half, they were good. Then you throw in a J-Dub's out of the game, and J-Dub, who had a complete renaissance in the second half yesterday after a slow start, he started fast. J-Dub had 12 points in 14 minutes, shooting 50% from the floor with 2 rebounds and 6 assists. That's a massive chunk of your team, of your offense. And so when your offense goes cold, it's natural to lean on that. Chet Holmgren was not good at all offensively. And he had a very tough assignment defensively. And he has a minus 20 in the box score to show for it. This was also the first time that Chet Holmgren's played a back-to-back since returning from his hip fracture. And guess what? There's no back-to-backs in the playoffs. But again, Denver is clearly capable of beating the Thunder because we're all picking the Thunder in 7. No one's picking a sweep. Nobody's picking them in 5. And that's how you get it done. And Denver executed that. And Denver showed great resolve in executing that. Denver deserves all the credit today. And not to say the Thunder don't deserve blame, and we're going to get into what they could have done differently. But the Thunder didn't execute, and Denver did. And sometimes it's that simple. And sometimes there's not these granular things to dig into. Nothing's wrong with the Thunder. They didn't show up tonight. They're going to have nights like this in the playoffs, but it's about how you respond. And to the Thunder's credit, they responded very well throughout the entire season, which leads you to believe they'll respond very well in the playoffs. We'll continue to talk about this game, including what the Thunder could have done to jumpstart their offense, which Shai talked about post-game, and the loss of J-Dub, the loss of Gordon, how we still don't have the clearest picture. We just have a good picture of what this series looks like. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Skims, go check out Skims today, because when I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about the quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always, wondered about luxury underwear, and I think that Skims fits that bill because of the fit, the comfort. It's the right style. Skims has changed the game for me in my underwear drawer. I'm wearing Skims right now. It's a beautiful thing. It has a great breathable fabric. It has great material. It kind of moves with you to help you not ride up, help you stay comfortable, help you cradle everything you need to. And it's just awesome. So make sure you check out Skims whenever you shop Skims for Men at skims.com or at the Skims store. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcasts in the survey and drop our show in the drop down menu box that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for Valentine's Day or just for a birthday or special occasion or for yourself, even treat yourself sometimes. Skims has launched their new best Valentine's shop ever, available in all sizes for women, men, kids, and even pets. Get Skims for your pets. I haven't gotten my dog Skims yet, but Gilmore deserves some. We'll try to get her some at Skims, the official underwear partner of the NBA, WNBA, and USA basketball. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Denver deserves all of the credit in this game, and they showed you why they're still a contender. They showed you why they're capable of winning the West. They showed you why, right, that this team is a team capable of pushing the Thunder to 7, whereas on paper, there's not many of those around the West. There's just not. Denver's one of them, and Denver deserves that respect. And for the Thunder, yeah, I mean, this team is built on the back of its depth and the back of its rotation being able to be up to snuff. It's built on its defense. It's built on its top players performing. And you got an excellent Isaiah Hartenstein performance. It's one of his better games that he's had with the Thunder, if not his very best game that he's had with the Thunder. You had an excellent Lou Dort game. And then Denver was able to take Shai out of the game in the second half. I mean, he finishes with 14 field goal attempts. 14 for SGA. Compare that to yesterday. Compare that to Jokic's 20. Jokic had 20 and his teammate had 22. Right? Like Jamal Murray had 22 and Jokic had 20. That's a massive chunk of your team getting opportunities with their best guys. Whereas the Thunder, with their two best scorers, Shai got 14 shot attempts, J-Dub got 10. And again, it's not an indictment on J-Dub. He just got hurt. He was a +8 in his 14 minutes. That completely changes the Thunder's offense. And this offense is good. It's fragile. There is no infallible team in the NBA this year. Adam Silver's gotten his wish of parity. So for as good as the Thunder are, they're not infallible. They're capable of missing shots in the second half, as they did tonight. They're capable of, if you take someone away, in this case, you took away J-Dub due to injury, they're not as good as they were. Shocker, right? It's just like the Minnesota game. Yes, they blew a big lead, but if you tell the Thunder they're not going to have a center for the playoffs, nobody would expect them to win a series, right? But if you tell them that they have their fully healthy roster, now you're expected to go win the finals. It's the same thing here. If you take away their second best scoring option, well, then that changes the complete dynamic of expectation level. And sometimes we lose sight of that because they technically did play. Jada played 14 minutes, but the second half unraveling, I don't think happens if J-Dub's in the game. Now, you still could lose the game. Make no bones about it. Because at the end of the day, it was an execution thing, and Denver did a much better job. But to the extent that Denver pulled away of getting up 16 points and having this game decided and making you wave the white flag, just like you made them wave the white flag 24 hours ago, I don't think that happens. Thunder could still lose. They could still lose down the stretch. But I would feel very confident that you don't put them away where you're putting in the reserves. Because ultimately, this game had 10 lead changes and 5 ties. And it was a game of runs. And the Thunder just could not sustain its success. And again, being built on the back of your defense, they let up 140 points tonight. That's not who this team is. That's not what this team does. But it's the second night of a back-to-back. And guess what you don't have in the playoffs? You don't have back-to-backs. Oftentimes in the playoffs, you can argue for there's an overload of rest. Now, no one would make that argument internally, but externally, like whenever we're anticipating these games, we just want them to happen fast. You get a couple of days off for travel, get a couple of days off here and there. So like the playoffs, you get not an abundance of rest, but you get more than 12 hours or whatever. I mean, you get more than a back-to-back, clearly. So yeah, their defense wasn't as sharp. And both teams had to deal with that, and Denver had the resilience to, and the Thunder didn't. And the Thunder have been very good this year on back-to-backs, have been very good this year, period, because they only have 12 losses, but they weren't good enough tonight, dealing with the back-to-back, dealing with what Denver had to deal with as well. And to Denver's credit, they didn't have Gordon, who changes everything for them defensively. And they still made life really tough on you. I think Julian Strouthard, if nothing else, gives you another guy in your Rolodex to flip through and find, right? Like with Julian Strouthard, he gives you another bite at the apple. Where tonight, all the role players were hitting. Yesterday, they were not, though. So like in yesterday's game, for example, when the role players were not good and weren't sustainably good, could you have gone to Strouthard and got something out of him? It couldn't have hurt, right? It couldn't have hurt yesterday. And then today, you had enough with you. But like Strouthard still matters, I think, to a lesser degree than J-Dub and Gordon, clearly. But I think Gordon is right up there with J-Dub level of impact because of what he does for their defense, because of what he does off of Jokic offensively as an off-ball player. So that's a huge loss for them. And that's why I say I think that we've gotten a good picture through 4 games of this season series of what these two teams would look like in the playoffs. We don't have a perfect picture, though, because we've not gotten to see these two teams be fully healthy. Because yesterday, Gordon played 5 minutes. Today, Gordon plays 0 and J-Dub plays 14. That's just not what they're built for. That's not what they're designed for. But the good picture that we've seen of like where we think we have a good understanding is this is going to be a very long series, like when and if it happens. And I'd predict it to happen. This is going to be a very long series. And it's going to come down to who can get the most out of their complementary players. And I think that a sneaky thing that it could come down to would be Jamal Murray versus J-Dub, because Jamal Murray is no stranger to having less than ideal nights. Look what he did on Sunday. And then what Denver did to Shai. The offense clearly sputtered in the second half. Like clearly, it dried up. Again, you take away J-Dub, it's totally different. But in the end, Shai was discussing postgame as the Thunder got outscored in the second half 73-54, that when they're generating good looks and they're generating good threes, there is still that volatility of the shot variance from 3. And the highest percentage shot is at the rim. So you still want to be able to attack even though you're generating good threes. Now, philosophy-wise, I still think that you trust your guys to hit shots. And you trust that, like, yeah, this happened 3 Mondays ago against Minnesota, and it happened today. There's a lot of games in between there where it didn't happen, right? Where Chet didn't go 0 for 4 from 3. Where you got a better night than 0 for 2 from Jay Will and 0 for 2 from Joe in the second half. And a bulk of their threes came from Shai and Lou, who took 14 of the 24. They just so happened to shoot 50% on them, together. So, I would still trust that shooting variance when you have a roster chock full of quality shooters. But to Shai's point, you hit this buzzsaw of, okay, Chet, you're a good 3-point shooter. You're 0 for 4. Jay Will, you're 0 for 2. And Joe, you're 0 for 2. How can we just get into the paint regardless? Right? Regardless of the fact that it's packed, regardless of the fact that we have a good, an open 3. Me personally, my philosophy would be, I still think that you have a higher percentage chance of making a wide open 3 than you do a contested shot in the rim. But to Shai's point, at least when you go in the rim, you open things up for anything. You can force the ref to get a foul call. Now, this Thunder team can't get foul calls except for Shai, so that's kind of out. But what you do open up is, okay, even if you miss a layup, at the rim, you have the chance for the putback because you have more bodies in the paint. You have more opportunity. Where Denver was really good at putbacks over these last 2 nights. And on the 3, the longer rebounds kind of take away from that. So even though you miss both shots, let's say you miss a shot at the rim and you miss a shot in the corner 3, there is a higher probability that you put one of them back, and it's usually the one at the rim where you can just have it back in there and you have more guys around you, plus the element of like forcing a whistle and drawing a foul. And if you somehow draw a foul and make your shot, then you get a bonus point anyway. So I get Shai's point of taking the chance out of it whereas like 3-point shooting is naturally more volatile than getting to the rim. But whenever your paint's packed and it's hard to get to the rim, you still don't want to pass up wide open three. So it's a delicate line to walk, and the Thunder have to find out how to walk it. Because like the game against Minnesota and the game tonight, as Shai was alluding to, they didn't walk that line finely enough. And I can concede to Shai on the idea that like maybe at times you should get into the paint. I think Shai specifically and Jada specifically, who didn't get to play in the second half, like those guys should get into the paint regardless of like, even if you have to go into the trees and get surrounded by three guys, just try to make something happen at the rim if you've gone dry from three. But I mean, J. Will and Joe and like their games aren't set up to pass up wide open threes. Like that's why they're on the floor. Chet Holmgren is a guy who could have attacked off the catch more as he did in the first half, getting by Murray. But still, I mean, you'll take 4 open Chet Holmgren threes. He just missed them. And sometimes it's that simple. It's like a make or miss league. As much as it is painful to say, especially from a player's standpoint, because as a player, you never want to give yourself the out or give yourself the excuse. And I personally like don't have that same skin in the game, so to say. I mean, for me, it's not excuses, just explanation of what happened. And for players, it can come off as excuses. So like, yeah, the Thunder do need to do a better job of getting into the paint. But I do think that there was an element of they just couldn't, just like in Minnesota, like against Minnesota in OKC. Coming up, we'll talk more about this game, including Isaiah Hartenstein and Lu Dort, who were really special and do still deserve credit, even though the Thunder lost this game, and what this could look like long-term for OKC. But first, I want to tell you right now, our good friends over at Wayfair. Go check out Wayfair today because your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you are looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect place and the perfect piece, no matter the space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylistic decor to kitchen essentials, outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all and at a good price to fit your budget. You can find the perfect piece for you, easy shopping, and it's delivered for free and arrives very fast. You can make sure that you compare and sample and see how simple it is to find the perfect style for you. More than just furniture, you're going to be surprised to find out that they have everything from storage to patio decor, making it the go-to for everything regarding your home. Head over to wayfair.com and find something for your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA. We're going to have our Locked On NBA West Squad show, which happened to just be myself and the hosts of Locked On Nuggets. So we talked a lot about this matchup, and we actually recorded that in the arena between the Blue and the Thunder game. And we did joke on there, like the Nuggets probably won this game, and they ended up winning the game. But that was more so based upon the information we had, obviously, from the first game, because we didn't know what the second game had in store. And what it had in store was a Denver win. But Lu Dort, big game player, man. I mean, he just rises to the occasion. 8 for 14. Didn't want to shortchange him. 8 for 14 from three, career high in threes. He had an off the dribble sidestep three. I mean, he was just on it. And even like it was a very efficient night. Do not take away from his efficiency. 57% from three, 56% from the floor. He was efficient. Like even could have been a better efficient game if he wasn't forced into like a shot clock three, which he had to shoot because you don't want the shot clock violation with the ball in your hands. You want it going toward the basket. So he had to shoot it. And even with those shot clock violations that he had to shoot, he still shot 57% from three. Like it was just a sensational game from Lu. 26 points from him, 4 steals and a block, 7 rebounds. You can't say enough about the way that Lu Dort shows up in big games, the confidence that he has. And that's a key piece of playoff success, honestly, is not letting big games get to you, having that same demeanor, confidence, swagger, whatever you want to call it, when the lights are the brightest, just like it's a normal game. And we've seen this from him since he was a rookie in the bubble, and he's been able to deliver in big games. He delivered in this game tonight. The Thunder just could not get the win. I'd say Hartenstein, Man, he was killing Jokic offensively, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 50% from the floor, and he even had some floaters he typically hits, rim out. He had 20 points, he had 7 rebounds, 2 assists for his night. Defensively, the front court, it's just incredibly tough to contain Jokic, and the fact that they did it for a game was really impressive, but especially in the second night of a back-to-back, you're going to really labor, and to Jokic's credit, he was part of that crew that just hit tough shots as well, in route to 35 points on 75% shooting. So nobody had a banner night defensively from the Thunder front court, but I thought that Hartenstein was really good for their offense. Again, Chet Holmgren, his worst game since his return, one of his worst games, like statistically, from his whole career, but especially since he returned. I think that he deserves credit for even going out there. I know that we hate to talk this way, especially in this market, this football market that thinks of things with a football lens, and I don't blame you for that. It's rooted in all of us. But this is his first game on a back-to-back since he suffered a hip fracture, since he broke his hip. And oh yeah, you're playing Jokic and the Nuggets. Good luck. Good luck. I thought that, I asked Mark pregame about if he had a minute restriction, and I knew that, like, Mark's philosophy, but you just have to ask. You have to make sure, especially with a delicate case like this. And Mark was like, no, if you needed a minute restriction, he wouldn't be out there. Like, and they treat that way with every player. Like, if you need a minute restriction, you shouldn't be on the court. So they don't really do the whole minute restriction thing. But again, this is a very specific case. But he talked about the details that go into it, of, like, they rested him on Friday in preparation of this back-to-back. Yesterday, they kind of targeted. I'm speculating. I think that they targeted this back-to-back because he did mention, hey, the first end of this back-to-back is at noon, the second end is at 7, so you have more than 24 hours to recover versus short of or right at 24 hours to recover. So the fact that he included this anecdote made me think, hey, maybe they were targeting this circumstances for the first back-to-back that Chet actually plays in. So the fact that he went out there and competed was awesome, but he didn't have the production necessary. I thought that he looked visibly tired. We didn't get to talk to him post-game, so I don't know that to be true, but I thought physically he did look tired. I thought that his shots were mainly short. I'll have to go, I'll always go back and rewatch the games in the morning, so we'll see if the eye test live matches the eye test in the film room. But Chet being back on the second night of back-to-back is encouraging, regardless of the numbers right at this moment. Kaysen, I thought, handled the situation the best of, at the end of it all, like when you just look at the box score, if you didn't watch the game, Kaysen had 12 points off the bench with 62% shooting, 8 assists, 3 boards, 3 steals, and a block. Like that was awesome. And obviously the Thunder second half offense really did sputter, but in the second half, like, Kaysen was thrusted into this role of having to take on the J-Dub role of play excellent defense, but also give us everything you have offensively. And Kaysen responded to that very well. 15 minutes in the second half, he had 9 of those points in the second half. He had 5 of those assists in the second half. He had 2 steals. He had 1 turnover. He shot 66% from the floor in the second half, getting to the rim and getting finishes around the ring. I thought that this is something you cannot plan for. Like obviously these guys got to stay ready. These guys are professionals. You got to be ready to go. But you head into this game with one mindset of coming off the bench, of being flanked by J-Dub on the ball, and even Wiggins has been on the ball during his minutes, alongside J-Dub. To now, hey, you got to be the number 2 guy, and he delivered. And Kaysen deserves a lot of credit for that. And then the fact of Wiggins just wasn't good enough offensively in this game. I thought that he continues to make strides defensively, but he's obviously kind of volatile on that end, because when Wiggins gets to defend a more natural position, like when he's defending guards, he looks good. When he's defending out of position, that's where he struggles. And he himself has talked about how he's not comfortable defending bigger positions yet, because it's a very hard thing to master. And so, the defensive end is hit or miss with Wiggins on the sense of, like, forcing misses. In the sense of motor and energy and effort, it's always there. And then offensively tonight, 8 points, especially whenever J-Dub's out for the second half, is just not good enough. But you're going to have nights like this. And it's one of those nights. It's one of those games. And Denver was the one that executed it. They were the one that had the more resilient effort on the second night of a back-to-back. And they got rewarded with a win tonight. So now you get the off day. Now you go to Boston and take on the Celtics. We don't know anything about the J-Dub injury. We know it's a right hip strain. I will say that, the fall looked hard. he was grimacing from the word go, hitting the floor, but he did walk back to the locker room. I don't know. I could see this being a wide length, wide range of like a week or whatever. Or I could see it being like, what if he's just back against Boston and they're being precautionary? I don't know. So the injury report this evening will be very fascinating to tune into. The Thunder, of course, couldn't tell us anything more than him being out for the second half because they just don't know yet either. I mean, that you got to go see how it responds tomorrow. I'm sure they're going to get imaging. I'm just speculating there. So I mean, we'll just see what it all looks like. So stay tuned for that. And then next game up against Boston, we'll preview it on tomorrow's show and talk about this week that was and the week that is, because I still think that this week is among the most important that this team has remaining. The most important this team has remaining for the regular season. So until next time, be good and be good to one another.